What's up, night owls? Tonight we're diving into something that sounds legendary but smells like sweat, rust and regret. Why you wouldn't last a single day as a medieval knight. I know, knights are supposed to be the icons of honor and glory, gleaming armor, epic quests, maybe a castle and a goblet of wine waiting for you at the end. But let's be real, that version lives in fairy tales and video games. Before we get into it, make sure to hit that like button if you love weird, uncomfortable history. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that make the past look way worse than you imagined. And hey, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We love hearing from all you midnight history nerds because while Hollywood gave you heroic battles and noble duels, history gives you bleeding feet, armor rashes, political backstabbing, and the kind of body odor that ends friendships. So grab your sword, if you can even lift it, and let's find out what it's actually like to survive just 24 hours in the life of a medieval knight. Chapter 1. Morning in the barracks. Congratulations. You've just opened your eyes in the year 1371, and you're officially a knight in training. The good news? You've been promoted out of peasanthood. The bad news? You now live in a military dormitory that smells like armpit stew and dead ambition. Your mattress, if you can call it that, is a flattened sack of straw infested with more bugs than your local forest floor. It's damp, always damp, and the blanket on top, made of rough wool soaked in dried sweat, campfire smoke, and the occasional bloodstain, because nothing says good morning like lying in yesterday's battlefield discharge. It hasn't been washed since the last crusade and now folds like a board and smells like boiled sock water. The first thing you hear is not birdsong, not a gentle knock, but a guttural roar from a man named something like Sir Aldrich the Maimed. He's your training master. His full-time job is to scream you into knighthood. His part-time job is making you regret being born. Up! Up, you oafs! If the enemy doesn't kill you, I will! You sit up fast and instantly regret it. Your spine cracks like firewood. Your knees ache like they've been borrowed from someone twice your age. And your neck makes a sound that would concern any modern chiropractor. You're 21 years old, which means you've got the joints of a senior citizen and the dental record of a 14th century goat. You swing your feet to the floor. It's cold, not just cold, medieval cold, the kind that seeps through stone, leather and bone. And yes, the floor is either slick with last night's chamber pot splash or crusted with dirt, mud or sweat, possibly all three. The air smells like a locker room had a love child with a butcher's shop. It's the scent of masculinity, mildew and unresolved trauma. You look around, 15 other would-be knights are waking up beside you, shirtless, scratching themselves. One of them is already peeing into a bucket. No one blinks. Welcome to the barracks, where privacy is for nobles and washing is for funerals. Breakfast, glad you asked. You grab a stale hunk of dark rye bread that could double as a weapon and chew it with the same enthusiasm as a condemned man eating his last meal, because it might be. There's no jam, no cheese, just a thin smear of lard on top if you're lucky. And a goblet of weak ale, because water is for people who enjoy dysentery. Your options are limited. This isn't a knight's feast. This is calories shoved into your face before you're hurled into 6 hours of physical punishment disguised as training. If you eat slow, Aldrich yells. If you eat fast, he still yells. It's a lose-lose situation that builds character or ulcers. Now it's time to get dressed. Step 1, the gambeson. This is a thick, quilted, padded jacket stuffed with layers of linen, straw and pain. It's the medieval equivalent of wearing a sleeping bag soaked in hot gravy. It weighs more than your average toddler and smells like a combination of mildew and regrets. Once it's on, you lose 40% of your ability to move and 100% of your ability to smell anything else. Next, chainmail. It's not elegant, it's not glamorous. It's a 40-pound metal sweater made of thousands of iron rings that chafe in places you didn't know could chafe. It catches your hair, pinches your skin, and makes every movement sound like a bag of cutlery being thrown down the stairs. Then come the plates. Chest, shoulders, thighs, arms, each one strapped on by your squire, who's 13 years old and already hates you. You stand there like a sweaty statue while he tightens buckles until your blood stops circulating. Finally, the helmet. It's heavy, stuffy, and immediately ruins any sense of peripheral vision. Breathing feels like trying to inhale through a leather boot. Your voice echoes inside like you're yelling in a coffin, and once it's on, you're blind, deaf, and dizzy, all at once. Congratulations, you are now a fully armoured medieval refrigerator. Outside, the training yard is already a mess of mud, manure, and testosterone. You can't walk more than 2 steps without tripping over a sparring dummy, a pile of broken weapons, or a knight in training who just passed out from heat exhaustion in plate armor. First up, sword drills. You're handed a blunted, long sword made of iron and regret. It weighs more than your dog. You're told to swing it in precise forms, overhead, side cut, low thrust, again, again, again. You do this until your arms go numb. Then you do it more. When your wrist buckles and the sword clatters to the dirt, Aldrich yells that in real combat you'd already be dead and also probably humiliated and possibly stabbed by your own squire out of pity. Then comes mounted training. You thought horses were majestic? Think again. Yours is named Terror. He bites, he kicks, he snorts like he has a personal grudge against you. Getting into the saddle in full armor is like trying to climb a greasy wall while wearing a backpack full of anvils. You flop around until 2 other knights hoist you up like a sack of turnips. Once on, you hold a practice lance that's roughly the length of a canoe. You're told to aim for a ring hung from a post at the far end of the track. You miss spectacularly. You also drop the lance and nearly fall off the horse. Aldrich doesn't even yell this time. He just walks away, muttering something about God's mistake. After lunch, which is a ladle of pottage that tastes like boiled sadness, you move on to shield training. This is where you stand in one spot while other men hit you with wooden swords. That's it. That's the whole drill. You hold a kite-shaped shield in front of you while getting beaten like a medieval piñata. Your arm starts to spasm. Your shoulder locks up. Your elbow is vibrating. At one point, someone misses the shield and clocks you in the helmet so hard your ears start ringing in Latin. By now, it's mid-afternoon. Your back is soaked. Your hands are raw. Your thighs feel like they've been slow-cooked. You can't sit. You can't bend. You can't breathe without tasting iron, leather, and failure. You've lost 1 toenail, 1 molar, and all self-respect. And guess what? Evening drills haven't started yet. You haven't fought in a war. You haven't saved a maiden. You haven't feasted in a castle or earned a single gold coin. All you've done is wake up, get dressed, eat stale bread, and spend 6 straight hours being bludgeoned by your peers while trapped in a medieval pressure cooker. And that's before the real combat training starts. So yeah, if you thought being a knight meant glory, honor, and heroic music playing in the background, welcome to reality. This is your new life. And you've only survived the first 6 hours. Chapter 2. The armor will break you. Congratulations. You survived the first round of drills without vomiting, crying, or being carried off the field. That already puts you in the top third of the rookies. But before you start dreaming of glory or dinner, you've got a date with your armor. And trust me, it's not the romantic kind. The first thing they throw at you isn't even metal. It's a quilted jacket called a gambeson. Sounds soft, right? It's not. It's thick, itchy, and weighs about as much as a medium-sized dog. It also smells like it's been slowly absorbing other people's sweat since the previous crusade, which, spoiler, it probably has. You strap it on, layering it over your already sweaty shirt, and instantly feel your core temperature go up by 5 degrees. Welcome to the slow roast. Next, they hand you your chainmail. It's made of thousands of tiny interlocking rings, which sounds kind of elegant until you try to lift it. That elegant chainmail shirt weighs about 30 pounds, and when you throw it over your shoulders, it doesn't drape like fabric. It drags, it pinches, it pulls your collarbone forward like it's trying to snap you in half. And that's before you even move. Now your squire, who is either 12 years old or already hates you, starts helping you strap on the rest. One by one, the metal plates come out. Shin guards, thigh plates, breastplate, arm guards, gloves, shoulder pauldrons, and finally a helmet that turns your head into an echo chamber. Each piece is buckled on with stiff leather straps that haven't been oiled in a decade and seem to be designed specifically to cut off circulation and optimism. Once everything's in place, you feel unstoppable. And by unstoppable, I mean you physically can't stop moving, because if you sit down, it might take 3 people and a crowbar to get you up again. You try to turn your head. Nope. The helmet limits your field of vision to about 40 degrees. You're now a heavily armed horse with tunnel vision. You try to scratch your face only to jab yourself in the visor and nearly chip a tooth. You try to bend over and your cuirass digs into your ribs like a disapproving nun. You try to walk and immediately discover that your hips don't work like they used to. You're not a knight, you're a medieval vending machine, loud, clunky, and full of regret. The drill master barks at you to line up. You try to jog into formation, which is adorable. Every step sounds like a toolbox falling down a staircase. Your thighs are already on fire from the weight. You haven't even lifted your sword yet. The first drill is formation marching, nothing fancy. Just walk in a line, keep in step, follow commands. You make it 10 steps before you nearly trip over your own greaves. The guy next to you stumbles and falls face first into the mud. He doesn't get up, not because he's hurt, but because he can't. It takes 2 squires and a rope to pull him upright again. Next up, sparring practice. You're handed a steel longsword and your arms immediately protest. The weight of the sword, combined with the armor, makes your shoulders feel like they're trying to leave your body. Your partner is another recruit named Reynold, who's been here for 3 months and looks like someone shaved a bear and gave it a grudge. The drill master gives the order. You raise your sword. Reynold charges like he's trying to kill a chicken with a shovel. His blade slams into your shield, which sends a shockwave up your arm and into your skull. Your vision blurs, your ears ring, you step back, accidentally overcorrect, and fall backward like a turtle being bullied by gravity. Reynold helps you up, but only after the drill master shouts at both of you to stop embarrassing the kingdom. You keep going. You trade blows. You block, you parry, you slip, you get hit, over and over again. Every clang of steel sounds like a dinner bell for pain. Your hands start to blister, your ribs start to bruise, your inner thighs, don't ask. They're already lobbying for independence. Eventually, the drill master calls a halt. You don't sit, you collapse. You pull off your helmet and immediately regret it, because the smell inside is like hot socks, goat cheese, and despair. Your hair is soaked, your face is red, your neck is chafed. The padding under your armor has formed a second skin, a moist, friction-burned second skin that you now live in permanently. You've got about 15 minutes before the next round. You use it to chug down a mug of lukewarm ale because the water isn't safe and no one has invented electrolytes yet. You try to breathe. Your lungs feel like they've been sat on by a cow. Your heartbeat is in your ears. You've lost feeling in one foot and all dignity. Back in formation. This time it's mounted combat. You line up next to a war horse named Ironfoot, who has the personality of a storm cloud and the patience of a drunk hangman. Getting onto him in full armor is a miracle involving a wooden platform, 2 squires, and more grunting than you'd like to admit. Once you're in the saddle, the real problems begin. The horse moves. You don't. Your armor locks your hips in place. Every step sends a jolt up your spine. Your tailbone becomes intimately familiar with the saddle horn. You're handed a practice lance that's basically a sharpened tree trunk. You're told to hit a target the size of a dinner plate while riding at full speed with one arm. You miss. Of course you miss. You nearly drop the lance and then your horse veers slightly and suddenly you're leaning too far. The weight of the armor drags you sideways. You try to right yourself. You fail, you fall, and when you hit the ground it's not dramatic, it's just thunk. Like someone dropping a sack of kitchenware off a roof. You lie there for a few seconds, too tired to scream, too embarrassed to care. The sergeant walks over. He pokes your helmet with a stick. Still alive? You give a weak thumbs up. Then get up! You don't. You can't. It takes 3 men to roll you upright like a turtle in crisis. They hoist you back into the saddle. You do it again and again until you stop falling off. Not because you're better, because your body has gone completely numb. When it's finally over, you dismount and stagger back to the barracks. You strip off your armor with trembling fingers, each buckle a test of pain tolerance. You peel off your gambeson, which now weighs twice as much and smells like it should be buried. Your body is covered in bruises, welts, and what might be the beginning of trench rot, even though you're not in a trench. Your armpits are raw, your thighs are chafed, your back is one big cramp, your feet have blisters under the blisters. You have bruises in places you're pretty sure didn't even get hit. You're bleeding from somewhere, you don't know where, you don't care. You sit on your straw mattress, you stare at the wall, and then someone hands you a rag, a bucket, and a bar of medieval soap, because guess what? It's your turn to clean the armor. You smile, you laugh, and then you cry into the bucket, because the armor didn't just break you today, it's coming for you again tomorrow, and it always wins. Chapter 3. The Knight's Diet. What's for dinner? Regret. Let's talk about food. You're hungry, of course you are. You've spent the entire day swinging metal, wearing metal, and being hit in the face with metal. Your muscles are shaking, your knees are threatening to secede, your stomach is making noises that sound suspiciously like it's trying to eat itself. Surely, after all that effort, you're due a feast. A grand medieval banquet, roasted meat, fresh bread, cheese wheels, goblets of wine, right? Nope. You're getting soup. And not the comforting kind, it's called pottage. It's not so much a meal as it is a concept. Imagine a thick, gloopy, sludgy stew made by boiling water, barley, a few onions, and maybe, if the cook was feeling generous, a turnip. It's been cooking in the same pot for days, possibly weeks. No one remembers when it started, and no one's entirely sure what's in it anymore. It's more of a living organism than a recipe. You approach the giant iron cauldron. The cook, who has zero joy left in his soul, ladles you a portion with all the enthusiasm of someone serving prison food to an enemy. Your bowl is wooden, slightly cracked, and smells vaguely of feet. You sit on a bench with splinters aimed directly at your inner thighs and stare into your dinner. It's beige. Why is it beige? No one knows. There's a piece of something floating near the surface. It might be meat, it might be a root, it might be a mouse. You don't ask questions in the night's mess hall. You just eat. You take your first bite. It's warm, sort of. It tastes like boiled sadness. The texture is somewhere between mashed peas and drywall paste. It clings to your spoon, your mouth, your will to live. It's not bad exactly, it's just aggressively uninspired, like the food equivalent of being told, "We have leftovers." But you find out it's just wet oats with attitude. There's bread too, kind of. You're handed a chunk of dark rye, baked so hard you could use it as a weapon, and yes, you will. Many knights keep a piece in their belt as an emergency projectile. It's made from coarse flour, often mixed with things like ground acorns, old barley husks, and, if times are tough, actual sawdust. You try to chew it. Your jaw audibly resents you. One bite in and your molar files for workers' compensation. This is your dinner, every day, twice if you're lucky. Not because knights are poor. Oh no, knights are supposed to be well-fed warriors. But you're a trainee, a glorified squire with delusions of chivalry. And trainees get the scraps, sometimes literally. You sip from your mug. It's ale. Always ale. Water is a death wish, filled with more bacteria than your Gambeson and likely to give you the kind of intestinal problems that require last rites. So you drink weak beer with every meal. It's flat, it's bitter, and it's barely alcoholic, which is honestly a mercy, because if you were drunk right now, you'd probably fall into the fire pit and no one would bother to pull you out. Meat? Rare. Special occasion only, usually salted pork or dried fish, unless your lord decides to be generous, which almost never happens. When meat does show up, you question it. What kind of meat? Is that leg supposed to be that color? Why does it smell like despair? But again, you don't ask. You eat. Slowly. Chewing everything at least 20 times to make sure it won't come back to haunt you halfway through the next joust. Cheese, if you're lucky. Mouldy, sharp, and probably walked out of the pantry on its own once or twice. Fresh fruit, hilarious. Vegetables, root only. No leafy greens, no salad, just turnips, onions, leeks, and occasionally a carrot so old it has opinions. There's no sugar, no spices, unless someone just came back from crusading and got paid in peppercorns. A single pinch of cinnamon is worth more than your armor. You wouldn't taste it, just stare at it from across the room, while nobles describe the scent like it's a religious experience. You finish your pottage. You stare into the empty bowl. You are not satisfied. You are not nourished. You are simply less hungry than before. Maybe. You lean back and listen to the conversations around you. One knight is talking about his last real meal, roast goose with fig sauce. That was 6 months ago. Another is joking about how the stew once contained an entire boot and no one noticed for 3 days. Someone else is whispering about a noble feast happening up in the main hall tonight. Roasted pheasant, honey cakes, red wine, candied almonds. You imagine it for a second and instantly hate yourself for being poor, tired, and covered in armor rash. Someone coughs violently in the corner. It sounds wet. Everyone goes quiet. You all just wait. Is he going to stop? Is this the plague? Or just a bad bite of undercooked pigeon? He spits something onto the floor and keeps eating. Crisis averted for now. You get up and bring your bowl back to the kitchen. The cook grunts. You nod. This is the closest you'll come to a heartfelt connection all day. Then it's latrine duty. You're not above it. No one is. You walk out to the edge of the yard, where a wooden shack with a half-rotten bench waits patiently. The pit below is full. Very full. You pray to any god still listening that you don't drop your sword down there. Again. You relieve yourself while staring at the wall. The smell is a physical presence. Your nose hair recoils. You breathe through your mouth. You regret that, too. Back in the barracks, someone's throwing up in a bucket. Was it the bread? The pottage, that weird green lump someone thought was a turnip, doesn't matter. It's just part of the system now. You sit on your straw mattress and pull off your boots. Your feet are red, blistered, slightly damp. Your big toe has something growing under the nail. You scratch it, then immediately regret touching it. You try not to think about food, but you do. You think about roasted garlic, warm pie, steamed dumplings. You think about grilled meat with actual seasoning. You think about butter. God, you miss butter. You'd kill a man for a bowl of broth with flavour. For a breakfast that isn't barley mixed with yesterday's disappointment, you lie back and listen to the rats. They're eating better than you are. You curl up under your itchy blanket. You can still taste the pottage. It's clinging to your teeth like old paste. Your stomach gurgles. Your breath smells like turnips and sorrow. You fall asleep wondering if anyone's ever choked to death on a rye brick. You bet someone has. And the best part? Tomorrow you get to do it all over again. Chapter 4. Chivalry, but make it misery. You've barely survived morning drills, your knees are on strike, your armour smells like the underside of a pig cart, and your last meal tried to escape your stomach through brute force. But don't worry, now it's time to uphold chivalry. Ah yes, chivalry, that noble code of honour, loyalty, and protecting the innocent. The thing Hollywood insists made every knight a brave, selfless gentleman who kissed babies and rescued maidens, except it didn't, not even close. Let's start with the basics. Chivalry wasn't some universal law written in gold and handed down from on high. It was more like a vague PR campaign written by the same monks who thought bathing was suspicious. It changed depending on who was in power, which religion you followed, and what your lord thought sounded noble that week. There wasn't one code of chivalry. There were dozens, most of them contradictory. Some knights swore to never kill the innocent, others built careers on massacring peasants. Some vowed to honour women, others viewed honour as not beating their wives in public. Chivalry, in practice, meant doing whatever made you look good in front of the right people. As long as your sword was sharp, your banners waved, and you didn't bleed on the carpets at court, you were doing just fine. But you're a trainee, a low-tier, mud-covered footnote in the book of chivalric glory. And today you're going to learn what chivalry looks like from the bottom. It starts with mucking stables. Yes, horses, the same beasts you've been told are your noble companions in battle, the proud, majestic war horses of legend. Right now, they're standing in stalls full of 3-day-old dung, swishing their tails and judging you while you shovel poop in a helmet that keeps slipping over your eyes. Your job is to clean out their bedding, refill their troughs, and try not to get kicked in the face again. One of them, named Lucifer because of course, has already bit your arm and sneezed directly into your soul. You smell like wet hay and digestive failure, but hey, it's chivalrous, apparently. After that, it's time for courtly manners. You're summoned into the training hall where a bored knight named Sir Baldwin is trying to teach you how to bow properly. You are sweating, you are itchy, your knees sound like an old cart being dismantled. But you bow again and again until you get it just right. Elbow here, chin there, knees not too bent or you look like a grovelling peasant. Back too straight and you're arrogant. Tilt your head the wrong way and congratulations, you've just insulted a duchess. You practice greeting lords, then ladies, then bishops. You mess it up every time. You're supposed to kiss a lady's hand, but not too long or they'll think you're lecherous. Don't squeeze, don't stare, don't smile too wide, don't speak unless spoken to, don't fidget, don't blink too much, but also don't look dead. Sir Baldwin says, chivalry is grace under pressure. You nod while silently peeling your damp tunic off your spine. Next, you're instructed to write a poem. Yes, a poem about virtue. You, a semi-literate human sandbag who just spent the morning being used as a training dummy, are now expected to compose a delicate verse about loyalty, purity, and divine order. You write something about swords and maybe love. It rhymes, sort of. You're told it's rustic. That's chivalric speak for embarrassing. The knight next to you writes an entire sonnet comparing his lady's eyes to moonlight and her soul to a dove. You're not sure he's ever seen a dove, but the instructors clap and call it devout. You eat a hard crust of bread while glaring at him with the fury of 1,000 unfed metaphors. Afternoon arrives, and with it, your chance to practice mercy. This is where things get interesting. You're given a wooden sword and paired up with a younger trainee, maybe 13, scrawny, all elbows. You're told to spar, but go easy, show restraint, be merciful. Prove that chivalry lives in your heart. The kid swings at your knee with the speed of a starving squirrel. You block barely, you swing back. Gently. He dodges, stumbles, and trips over his own feet. The drill master raises an eyebrow. Was that mercy or cowardice? You're not sure. So next time you swing harder. The kid goes down. Now you've failed the test. Chivalry, the master says, means strength held in check. You nod while mentally holding in a scream. Then comes the best part, guarding the noble's daughter. No, this is not the beginning of a romantic subplot. This is the beginning of you standing for 6 hours outside a door while a teenage aristocrat inside plays the lute and screams at her maid for bringing lukewarm honey water. You're not allowed to speak to her or look at her or acknowledge she exists unless she speaks to you first. You're basically a very sweaty, heavily armored coat rack. Eventually she opens the door, stares at you, wrinkles her nose and says, "Oh, you smell like feet." You say nothing, because chivalry. She slams the door, your thighs cramp, you shift your weight, your armor creaks. Somewhere a mouse runs past your boot. You stand there and reflect on your dreams. How once, when you were a child, you wanted to be a knight, a hero, a legend. And now you're a deodorant test. Evening comes and you're dismissed. You return to the barracks. You're starving. Again, dinner is, surprise, more pottage. This time with a hint of turnip and something that crunches in a way turnips shouldn't. You eat it anyway. Your poem is hanging on the board. Someone's drawn something inappropriate in the margins. You don't have the energy to be mad. Your hands are cracked. Your nails are black. Your knees ache. You haven't bathed in 5 days. You're starting to smell like your own armpit through 3 layers of wool and chainmail. You lie back on your straw mattress and stare at the rafters. Is this chivalry? Is this what it's all about? Being miserable for the sake of appearances? You remember a story the older knights told about a man who rode for 2 days straight just to return a glove his lady dropped. He died from an infected blister. Everyone thought he was noble. You think he was an idiot. But maybe that's the point. Chivalry, it turns out, isn't about honor. It's about suffering elegantly. And you, poor fool, have just started to learn how. Chapter 5. The Joust. Hope you like whiplash. Today's the big day. You, brave and battered trainee of the knightly arts, are going to joust. You've heard the legends, the glory, the spectacle. 2 gallant knights charging at each other in front of a roaring crowd, lances poised, banners fluttering and maidens sighing behind embroidered veils. The music swells. The horses gallop in slow motion, sparks fly. One man falls, the other wins honor, fame, and probably a turkey leg the size of a baby. Yeah. No. Here's what jousting actually looks like. You, in 80 pounds of heat-trapping steel, straddling a mildly irritated warhorse while trying not to pass out from stress, dehydration, and the fact that your lance is longer than your life expectancy. It starts early. You're woken at sunrise by a trumpet. Not a lovely melody, just a long, painful bleat that sounds like someone stepped on a goose. You sit up, every muscle screaming. Your arms still hurt from sparring, your thighs are still on strike, your back has formed a permanent question mark. Today, though, there's no time for stretching or moping. Today is field exercise, which is the polite term for try not to die while impersonating a human battering ram. You eat breakfast, surprise, more pottage, this time with an aftertaste of smoke, which might be the cook experimenting with flavor or might be the bottom of the cauldron catching fire. You choke it down. You need fuel, you need energy. You're about to hurl yourself into combat, medieval style. You report to the training yard. It's already buzzing with activity. Horses are being brushed. Armor is being polished. Squires are running around like caffeinated ants. There's tension in the air, the kind that says someone's going to bleed today, and it might be you. Your name is called. You walk forward, or rather you clank forward. First stop, armor. You get suited up with help from 2 squires and a man named Brother Elfric, who seems disturbingly excited about cinching straps near your groin. The armor today is heavier than usual, reinforced for jousting. That means more metal, more padding, and 0 mobility. You are now a walking tin man with a pulse and a very uncertain bladder. The helmet they give you is narrower than usual. It reduces your field of vision to directly in front of you and nothing else. Can't see left. Can't see right. Just horse. Lance. Doom. Then comes the lance. It's enormous. Roughly 10 to 12 feet long, made of hardwood and tipped with a metal coronal, a blunt, pronged head designed to reduce fatalities, which is medieval, for you probably won't die instantly. You're told to balance it under your arm and aim for your opponent's shield. You lift it, your shoulder screams. You almost drop it. Your squire helps adjust the grip. You nod like this is fine. This is normal. This is absolutely what you trained for, and not just barely controlled terror on horseback. Speaking of horses, meet your ride, a war horse named Bramble, whose eyes say, I've killed before and I'll do it again. He's taller than you remember, wider than you're comfortable with, and currently sniffing your leg like he's deciding which part to trample first. Mounting him in full armor is a feat. You use a ladder. 2 squires push you from behind. You flop into the saddle with the grace of a bagpipe full of rocks. Now you're perched up high, helmet locked, sweat pouring down your back, lance wobbling slightly in your right hand. The tilt, the long fenced lane between you and your opponent, stretches ahead like a judgmental hallway. Your opponent is already mounted. Bigger, older, possibly angry. You squint through your visor. His armor has a family crest. His horse has matching barding. He's done this before. You have not. A banner drops. Time to die. Bramble lunges forward. You are instantly rocked back, spine slammed into the saddle, every joint yelling, "Nope!" The ground blurs beneath you. The crowd, or maybe just your own ears, is screaming. Your lance vibrates. Your teeth rattle. You grip harder. Focus. You aim for the shield, and then... crack, everything goes white. The impact hits you like a battering ram. Your lance snaps in half. Your opponent strikes your left side, smashing into your shield, jolting you hard enough to question your entire career trajectory. You don't fall somehow, but your ears are ringing. Your breath is gone. Your ribs feel like they've shifted to a different postcode. The horse is slow. The squires rush in. Someone's yelling something, but it sounds like underwater Latin. You blink. Your visor is dented. Your arm is numb. You're still on the horse, small victory. Your opponent, still mounted too, which means you're doing it again. Another lance, another lineup. You do it 3 more times. Each pass is worse. Your shoulder's gone. Your thighs are jelly. You can't feel your left foot. Your helmet has a crack now, which lets in more air, but also more fear. The final run ends when your opponent's lance catches your pauldron and twists you sideways. Your balance slips, the world tilts, you go down. You hit the ground like a sack of armored bricks, roll once and stop with your face in the dirt. You lie there for a second, waiting for God, mercy, or unconsciousness, whichever shows up first. Instead, you get mud in your mouth and a squire shouting, "He's breathing, sort of." They drag you off the field. You're not dead, barely, but your pride, gone. Your ribs, bruised, your nose, bleeding, somehow, despite being inside a helmet. You're sat up against a fence, someone gives you water, someone else pats your shoulder, which is nice until you remember it's dislocated. Your helmet comes off, steam rises like you've just been cooked inside a giant metal microwave. Your hair is soaked, your eyes are wide. Your soul is somewhere in the next village. Later a knight walks by and says, "Well jousted, lad. Took your hits like a man." You want to thank him, you want to curse him. You mostly want a nap, and some ice, and possibly a career in accounting. That evening you eat dinner, slowly, one-handed. Your jaw clicks when you chew. You hear the others talking about tomorrow's drills. You can't feel your teeth or your upper lip. You lie in bed, flat on your back, arms spread, staring at the ceiling. So that was jousting. Majestic, noble, glorious. Also loud, traumatic, and 95% splinters. You close your eyes and vow to never ever do that again until next week, because that's how training works. Chapter 6. Battle Scars and Battlefield Hygiene. Congratulations, you've survived your first joust. Barely. Your ribs feel like shattered pottery. Your mouth tastes like rust. There's a sharp pain in your shoulder that might be a pulled muscle or might be your soul trying to escape your body, but you're alive. Unfortunately, that's when the real fun begins, because knights don't just get injured, they stay injured. And in the glorious, gritty world of medieval warfare, getting hurt isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a long, slow descent into pain, pus and primitive medicine that mostly involves prayers and sharp knives. Let's start with your current status. Bruised, battered, bleeding, and possibly concussed. You wake up on a straw mattress in the infirmary, which is just a fancy word for the same barracks room, but with more groaning and a bowl of questionable herbs in the corner. There's no doctor. There's a man named Brother Willem who has 2 tools, a stick to bite and a knife that's never been cleaned. Your squire explains what happened, how you fell, how your opponent's lance clipped your shoulder, how you looked kind of dead but still twitching. You try to nod. You instantly regret it. Brother Willem leans over you, squints and says, "It's not fatal unless it festers." Comforting. He hands you a flask of something that smells like paint thinner and kicks your leg to make sure you're still responsive. Then, with all the care of a drunk blacksmith, he yanks your dislocated shoulder back into place. You scream, loudly. Everyone pretends not to hear. After that, you're told to rest, which would be great, except you can't because the straw pokes through the linen. The pillow is just more straw in a different shape. The blanket smells like boiled cabbage and mildew, and the knight on the mat next to you is moaning so loud it sounds like he's auditioning for a ghost story. You sleep in short bursts. You wake up drenched in sweat. You try not to move. Every part of you is sore, including body parts you were previously unaware existed. When you finally drag yourself out of bed, it's because the stench has reached critical levels. Let's talk about hygiene. Here's a fun fact. You don't get to bathe after combat. You don't even get to rinse. Your armor is still filthy. Your gambeson is damp, stained, and now has visible mold blooming under one armpit. Your underclothes, if you wore any, are so stuck to your skin that removing them risks tearing flesh. You haven't brushed your teeth in a week, because guess what? Toothbrushes don't exist. The most you can do is chew a stick and swish some watered-down wine, assuming someone hasn't already stolen it. Your breath smells like boiled onions and dried blood. Your gums are inflamed. One of your molars is loose. Baths? Ha! You've heard rumours of noblemen with private tubs, of Roman-style bathhouses in faraway cities, of scented oils, warm water and sponges. But here you're handed a cloth, a bucket of cold water, and a look that says, don't use too much. You scrub your arms, your chest, your neck. You skip your legs because you can't lift them. You wash your groin area and instantly regret it because the water is approximately 1 degree above freezing and the soap is made of lye, animal fat and dashed hopes. You dry off using the same cloth and return to your bunk feeling slightly less disgusting, but still vaguely cursed. Now comes the real test. Your wounds. They've started to itch. Itching, in medieval terms, is either good or very, very bad. It could mean healing, or it could mean infection. You look at your shoulder, the skin is red, puffy, there's a smell. You poke it gently, it oozes, not a great sign. You show Brother Willem. He nods grimly and reaches for his kit, a rusty knife, a candle, and a rag soaked in what smells like vinegar and despair. You ask what he's doing. He says, "We must let the bad humours out." You scream again, because letting the bad humours out means cutting open the wound and squeezing it until your vision blurs and your ancestors feel it. Afterward, he packs the gash with a paste of honey, garlic, and moss. Natural antiseptic, he says. You consider biting him, but your jaw hurts too much. You're wrapped in linen strips and told to lie still. You lie there, motionless, sticky, humiliated. Your shoulder throbs, your side aches. You're not sure if you're healing or slowly turning into a compost pile. The next day you have to change your own bandages. This is a two-person job. You are one person. You do your best. You fail. You bleed all over the floor and slip in it, trying to clean up. Your squire finds you crawling toward the water bucket, muttering about ghosts and peppercorns. He pats your head and brings you more wine. Bless him. 2 days later, a knight arrives at the infirmary with a spear wound in his thigh. It's deep. The kind of wound that, in modern times, gets cleaned, stitched, and treated with antibiotics. Here, they heat a metal rod over a fire. You hear him screaming from 3 buildings away. The smell of burning flesh lingers for hours. You decide your oozing shoulder is fine. Later that week, someone develops a fever. It spreads fast. The barracks are too crowded, too warm, too full of bodies, and not enough airflow. The air smells wrong, thick, sour. You hear whispers, plague, pox, bad air. No one knows, but people start dying, quietly, one by one. Not from wounds, from everything else. Infection, gangrene, respiratory illness, rats. You learn to sleep with a knife under your pillow, not for defense, but to kill the next flea that bites your ankle. You stop asking how your friends are doing. You start noticing who isn't at breakfast. You wrap your arm tighter. You clean it with wine. You pray. You stop praying. You lie in your bunk and dream of soft beds and real baths and doctors with actual knowledge. But you wake up to damp wool and Brother Willem waving a candle over your feet to check your humours. This is medieval medicine. This is battlefield recovery. This is why knights didn't live long. You survive another week, barely. Your shoulder scabs, your ribs stop cracking when you breathe. You eat more pottage, you drink more beer. You feel the fever pass this time, and you walk out of the infirmary not because you're better, but because someone else needs your mattress. Chapter 7. Religion, Superstition, and the Joy of Feeling Cursed. You're not a particularly spiritual person, at least you weren't. But after everything you've been through, getting bludgeoned by lances, living in armour that doubles as a sweat lodge, watching your bunkmate cough himself into a shallow grave, you're starting to ask questions. Like, is God mad at you, or is this just what faith feels like in the 14th century? Spoiler, it's both, because in the world of a medieval knight, religion isn't just Sunday morning hymns and gentle sermons. It's a full-contact, fear-based, guilt-ridden lifestyle backed by enough superstition to make a modern conspiracy theorist blush. God is everywhere. So is the devil, and you're probably disappointing both. It starts the moment you wake up. Before your feet hit the freezing stone floor, you're supposed to cross yourself, say a morning prayer. Thank God for not smiting you in your sleep. You don't always remember. Sometimes you just groan, fart, and try to sit up without your spine falling apart. That's a sin, probably. Then comes Mass, daily, mandatory. You stumble into the chapel with 100 other tired knights, all of you still wearing the same clothes you slept in and trying not to fall asleep on your feet. The priest is already halfway through a passage from the Book of Ecclesiastes, something about suffering. You're living the sequel, the chapel is cold, the benches are hard, the incense makes your eyes water. You kneel on a floor that hasn't been cleaned since the last plague, and you try to look holy while your stomach grumbles and your hip cramps. The sermon is, in a word, bleak. You're a sinner. Everyone's a sinner. The world is full of sin, and God is very, very disappointed. You nod solemnly. You cross yourself again. You whisper something about forgiveness, mostly out of habit. Then the priest says a few words in Latin, sprinkles water over everyone, and sends you back into the world with the spiritual equivalent of a shrug and a warning. You feel not better, but more anxious, which is kind of the point. Back in the training yard, the other knights are already talking about omens, blackbirds on the roof, strange dreams, a new mole shaped like the Holy Grail. One guy swears he heard the Virgin Mary whispering in the wind last night. Another claims his sword glowed briefly before practice. You joke that it was probably just moonlight. They don't laugh. They look at you like you just questioned the sky. Because for all their swords and shields and battle cries, knights are deeply, profoundly superstitious. Cross yourself before mounting a horse. Never spar on a Friday. Always bless your blade before a duel. If your boots are wet in the morning, it means someone has cursed you. And if a crow lands near your tent, start digging your own grave. You try to play along. You really do. You whisper prayers before drills. You tie a little relic, a splinter of wood someone swears is from the true cross, to your belt. You touch the chapel door 3 times before entering because you're starting to realize something. In this world, survival doesn't belong to the strongest. It belongs to the most careful. And that includes God. When you're sent on patrol, you carry a cross stitched into your sleeve. When you clean your armor, you draw a tiny circle of ash on the chest plate. To ward off spirits, your squire insists. You keep a dried toad in your saddlebag. You don't ask questions. Even the instructors get twitchy sometimes. One of them refuses to train anyone whose name starts with G. Another keeps salt in his pockets. A third recites the Lord's Prayer every time he sharpens a blade. You once saw a knight pray over a chicken. It wasn't even a religious ceremony. He just really didn't want to die. The line between religion and superstition is thinner than your patience, and just when you think it can't get any more unhinged, it does. One evening a comet appears in the sky, just a faint streak of light over the horizon. You think it's beautiful. Everyone else panics. Knights kneel in the mud. Priests start chanting. Someone lights a candle in every window. The castle bells ring. A monk faints. You overhear a whisper. The Lord is cleansing. The next morning you're ordered to fast. No food, no ale, just water and prayers, because if God's about to smite the earth, the least you can do is suffer in advance. You spend the day lightheaded, hungry and terrified of dying by meteor. The comet disappears. Life goes on, but now everyone looks changed, more serious, more faithful, more cracked. You don't talk back to your instructors anymore. You bless your food before eating. You start carrying a rosary, even though you're not sure you're doing it right. You try to remember the names of all the saints. There are a lot. You forget most. You just hope St. George, the patron of knights, is paying attention. Then comes confession. It happens every week. You kneel in a small wooden booth and spill your sins to a man you barely know, hoping he'll forgive you on behalf of an all-powerful being who watches everything you do. You confess to laziness, to cursing, to thinking about punching your squire, to eating an extra crust of bread during a fast. The priest says you must do penance. 5 Hail Marys. No speaking until dinner, scrubbing the chapel floor. You nod, you leave, you do it, because that's the game. Sin, confess, repeat, and hope no one dies in the meantime. Sometimes people don't make it to confession. You've seen it. A young knight took a bad wound during sparring. He bled out on the field before the priest could arrive. No final rites, no last prayer. Everyone went quiet. Later that night, the chapel was full. No talking, just kneeling. Everyone suddenly remembered how much they believed. And then there's the relics, bits of bone, pieces of cloth, wood chips, teeth, all said to be from saints, apostles, even Christ himself. The wealthier knights wear them in lockets, some pay to touch them. You once saw a man press his forehead against a glass case containing a supposed toenail from St. Bernard. He cried, was it real? Probably not. Did it matter? Definitely not. Faith here isn't about facts, it's about hope and desperation. You cling to rituals because the world is terrifying. You cross yourself before battle because it's the only thing you can control. You whisper names of saints not because you know them, but because saying something is better than saying nothing. You're not sure if you believe, you just don't want to die alone. That night, as you lie on your straw mattress, you stare at the wooden ceiling and pray. Not because someone told you to, but because it feels like the only thing left to do. You're scared, you're tired, you're aching in ways no bath can fix. You ask for protection, strength, mercy. You promise to be better. You don't know if anyone's listening, but you whisper anyway because here that's how survival starts. Chapter 8. The Siege. Trapped, starving and ready to snap. The alarm bell rings at dawn. Not the nice church bell, the other one. The something awful is about to happen bell. You stumble out of your straw pile with a half-dislodged boot still on your foot and a mouth that tastes like fermented oats. Outside, chaos, horses braying, men shouting. The guards on the tower waving frantically toward the horizon. Enemy banners, siege. You don't know the attackers. Maybe it's a rival lord. Maybe it's bandits who got organized. Maybe it's just Tuesday. What you do know is they've got catapults, and you're about to find out what it's like to be a sardine in a very old, very flammable tin can. Your orders are simple. Prepare for a long haul. You haul buckets, stack barrels, reinforce the gates, run back and forth, carrying messages, oil, sand, more buckets. No one knows what they're doing. Everyone is sweating. The castle walls are high, but they're not invincible, especially the north side, where the stone's cracked and Sir Ulrich keeps meaning to fix it. They're shouting from the tower. You look up just in time to see the first boulder fly overhead. It misses, but the second one doesn't. It hits the outer wall like a divine slap. Stone cracks, dust flies. The sound is worse than the impact, like the world itself is being torn in half. A man screams. You don't know who, you don't look. Welcome to siege warfare. You're not storming the castle, you're in it. That's the bad news. Here's the worst news. The gate is shut. Supplies are cut off. You are now locked inside with 300 sweaty, angry men, a dozen terrified horses, half a barrel of salted fish, and your own thoughts. Food is rationed on day one. Bread, dried peas, hard cheese, water is checked, wine is measured, the cellar inventory is grim. Someone mutters something about the backup plan. You ask what the backup plan is. He doesn't answer. By day 2, the air inside the castle feels thicker. There's smoke always, cooking fires, torches, breath. You're posted on the wall with a bow you barely know how to use, watching shadows move behind enemy siege towers. You squint for hours. Nothing happens. You go back down. Your shift ends. Then 5 minutes later, you're sent back up. That's how watches work now. You sleep in full armor. You eat in your helmet. You sweat so much that your gambeson is permanently wet. The latrines fill up. Fast they overflow. No one wants to talk about it, so everyone just glares and blames the kitchen boy. By day 4, morale is cracking. The food is now mostly pottage, but with no meat, just barley and broth and salt. You've eaten this sludge 3 times a day, and your body has started to reject the concept of texture. The bread is green on one side. You scrape it off. Someone else doesn't. They vomit. The priest says it's a test of faith. You say it's mold. No one laughs. At night, the enemy taunts you. They bang on drums. They sing drinking songs. Someone plays a flute badly. You can hear them feasting. You smell roast meat. You try not to cry. Someone in your unit gets the idea to hurl insults back, then rocks, then a dead pig. That last one takes 3 men to launch and splatters on impact. Morale goes up. Briefly, then they fire back with a real pig. On fire. It lands inside the courtyard. The smell is unforgettable. By day 6, rations are halved. You get a bowl of something brown. No one asks what's in it. You eat it anyway. You chew slowly. You try not to taste. You swallow. You hate yourself. You've stopped cleaning your armor. What's the point? You smell like everyone else now. A combination of smoke, filth, anxiety, and disappointment. A fight breaks out over a strip of dried meat. It's between 2 squires. One draws a dagger. You stop it before blood spills, but now you're all looking at each other differently. You hear rumors, a secret tunnel, a plan to bribe the attackers, a knight who wants to lead a sortie at dawn. None of it's real, but you cling to it. Hope is scarce. Lies are easier. By day 8, the wine is gone. This is a tragedy. Even the priest drinks, especially the priest. The guards are restless. The old knight in charge of the armory disappears for a few hours and comes back with blood on his tunic. No one asks why. Your foot has a blister that popped 3 days ago and now smells like a fish market. You wrapped it in cloth. The cloth is black. You pretend it's fine. The enemy launches a flaming boulder. It misses the walls but hits the stables. Horses panic. The fire spreads. Half the garrison runs to stop it. You grab a bucket and throw water for an hour. When it's out, 2 men are dead, one from smoke, one from being kicked in the face by a warhorse named Mercy. You sit down and realize you haven't slept in 36 hours. You don't even know what day it is. You eat your pottage. It's thinner now, fewer chunks, just broth and mystery. Someone coughs near you. You lean away. By day 10, the siege is a routine. Wake up, eat grey food, watch the walls, sharpen weapons, wipe sweat, argue, pray, repeat. Someone tries to dig a well in the courtyard. They get 6 feet down and hit stone. They keep going. They believe in miracles. Another knight eats an entire candle, claims it's pork. You believe him for a moment. You want to. By day 12, your commander announces a daring raid. 10 knights, 1 gate, midnight. You are not selected. You are relieved. You cry. By day 13, the gate is still closed. The raid failed. No survivors. Everyone pretends it didn't happen. By day 14, the water tastes like oil. The peas are gone. The bread is now just flour baked into rocks. You chew slowly. You swallow carefully. Someone tries to boil leather straps into soup. It doesn't work. You drink it anyway. You pretend it's meat. You dream of cheese, of fruit, of a plum. You wake up chewing on your sleeve. By day 15, the whispers begin about the cook, about the missing guard, about the stew tasting different. You laugh, then you stop because it's not funny anymore. You're trapped, starving, cracking, and everyone else is too. That night, a boulder crashes through the chapel roof. The cross falls, no one moves. You sleep under the wall, wrapped in a damp blanket that smells like mildew and failure. And then, on day 16, silence. No catapults, no drums, no songs. You climb the tower, you peer out. The enemy is gone. Vanished. Just smoke on the horizon. You don't believe it at first, no one does. Then the gate creaks open. You walk outside for the first time in over 2 weeks. The air is clean, the sky is blue, you see grass, and you cry because you're alive. But you're not the same, and you never will be. Chapter 9. Downtime. When you're not fighting, you're still miserable. You survived the siege. You survived the moldy bread, the infected foot, the hallucinated roast chicken that turned out to be a pile of laundry. Now you finally get what you thought you wanted, peace. No battles, no flaming pigs, no flaming anything, just calm. Congratulations. Now you get to be bored, tired, itchy, and more uncomfortable than ever, because, as it turns out, the only thing worse than medieval war is medieval downtime. You wake up later than usual, but it doesn't feel like rest. Your mattress is still straw. Your neck still crackles like a fireplace when you move, and there's still a squire snoring 3 feet away, whose breath smells like cabbage and death. No alarm bells, no screaming, just a weird silence that feels like the world is holding its breath. Your first job of the day? Chores. Yes, chores. You thought you'd be spending your peaceful days polishing swords or training in noble arts like falconry or chess. Wrong. You're cleaning latrines, scrubbing floors, sharpening weapons, unpacking barrels, polishing armor that still smells like the inside of a blacksmith's armpit. You scrub chainmail until your hands go numb. You sand down splinters from wooden practice swords. You sweep the hall and try not to gag when you find something squishy that definitely wasn't food. You're told this is part of the nightly discipline. You suspect it's revenge. Then it's time for training. Yes, training. Because apparently, if you're not actively fighting, you should be preparing to fight, or recovering from fighting, or imagining a future where fighting is once again possible. So you run laps, you spar, you do push-ups in the mud while a knight with a mustache yells at you to be the sword. You don't know what that means. You ask. You're told not to ask. After training, there's lunch. You're excited briefly, then you remember what lunch is. Pottage. Again. Except this time it's cold and thin and served with a hunk of bread so hard it could survive a siege by itself. You chew. Slowly, you try not to think about flavor. You wonder what herbs are. You've heard of them, never seen one. You finish lunch and return to your quarters, which is a generous term for a damp stone room with zero ventilation and a rat that has developed a personality. You try to rest. Your body refuses, so you write. Yes, write. Part of nightly training includes letter writing to build character and literacy. You're supposed to write to your Lord, or your family, or to God. You start a letter to your mother. You end it after 2 lines because you accidentally dripped sweat on the parchment. and now it looks like a love note from a drunk monk. You crumple it up, eat more stale bread, consider screaming into a bucket. You settle for muttering. Then it's time for etiquette lessons. You shuffle into the Great Hall with 8 other exhausted trainees to be told how to properly bow, how to hold a goblet, and how to address nobility without sounding like a mud-covered toad. Your instructor is Lady Elsbeth, who smells like lavender and judgment. She corrects your posture by smacking your back with a stick. You're now standing upright and internally crying. You're forced to recite formal greetings in French, which you don't speak. You accidentally call someone's aunt a goat. You're told to sit properly. You do. The bench breaks. No one helps. You stand the rest of the lesson. After etiquette comes something called spiritual reflection, which means kneeling in the chapel for 30 minutes and pretending to pray while your knees slowly fuse to the floor. You pray for food that isn't beige. You pray for socks. You pray for a world without fleas. You pray for death. Then the priest finishes reciting something in Latin, flicks holy water in your direction, and leaves you with a vague sense of guilt and a wet forehead. You return to the yard. You're told to help with horse grooming. You don't like horses. They don't like you. One kicks you in the thigh. Another sneezes in your face. You now smell like hay and betrayal. Evening comes, you're exhausted. You've done nothing heroic, nothing exciting. Just 6 hours of low-grade suffering wrapped in the illusion of productivity. Dinner is slightly warmer pottage with a garnish of crushed hope. You eat it with your fingers because someone stole your spoon. You find it later in the latrine. You decide you don't need a spoon ever again. After dinner, you gather in the main hall with the other knights in training. There's a bard. He sings about a noble knight who slew a dragon, rescued a princess, and won a kingdom. Everyone claps. You stare into your empty bowl. You think about your own day. You cleaned up horse dung, got scolded for sneezing during a burr, and lost a staring contest with a chicken. You go to bed. The straw pokes your back in exactly the same spot it always does. You scratch your leg. You feel a bite. Fleas. Again. You sigh. Downtime is not rest. It's just misery with fewer things trying to stab you. You close your eyes. You dream of battles, not because they're glorious, but because at least then you don't have to mop the stables. Chapter 10. The Court. Politics, paranoia, and pretending to be important. At some point in your nightly misery, after the bruises, after the bad stew, after the fleas, you're told you've earned the honor of serving at court. That sounds impressive. It's not. The court is where all the theoretically important people gather, nobles, clerics, knights who didn't get hit in the head too many times. You assume it'll be full of wise men making strategic decisions and hosting elegant banquets. You're half right, the banquets exist. So does the strategy. It just mostly involves backstabbing, flattery, paranoia, and wearing clothes that itch in new and exotic ways. You arrive at the castle feeling hopeful, maybe a little proud. You even cleaned your boots. Someone told you to bring a gift for the Lord. You panic and hand over the least mouldy hunk of cheese you could find on short notice. The steward thanks you like you've just insulted his lineage. Off to a good start. Your first lesson is about standing. Yes, standing. You do a lot of it. You're not important enough to sit. You stand against walls, you stand behind chairs, you stand beside doors, at attention, trying not to look too bored or too alive. You stand for hours while other people talk about things you don't understand. Grain prices, border disputes, marital alliances. Sometimes there's a Latin phrase thrown in. Everyone nods solemnly like it meant something. You're told to look alert but humble, present but invisible. You don't know how to do that, so you settle for confused but clean. When you're not standing, you're walking, behind someone, next to someone, not too close, not too far. You're meant to be noticed just enough that they remember you if they need something, but not so much that anyone assumes you have thought. The second thing you learn is how to compliment people while meaning absolutely nothing. The lady's gown, remarkably woven. The knight's sword, astonishing craftsmanship. The steward's haircut, bold choice. You get good at it. You practice phrases like, "My lord," your judgment is unmatched, and "a fine decision," your grace, most timely. These phrases are like armor, thin, polished, and absolutely hollow, but essential. You also learn never to speak first, never to speak last, never to speak at all, unless someone higher ranking asks you a question, and even then only answer the question. No jokes, no anecdotes, no opinions. You watch one knight get into a debate over land taxes. He ends up reassigned to a garrison in the north where it rains sideways and the sheep walk on 2 legs. You nod a lot. Smiling is optional. The food is shockingly better. Meat appears regularly. Pies, cheese, even fruit sometimes. The bread is softer and less likely to break a tooth, but there's a catch. You can't eat like a starving animal anymore. You must eat with restraint, with poise, like someone who didn't just survive a siege by boiling leather. There's a right way to hold your spoon, a correct order in which to eat things. You once reached for the meat before the Lord had lifted his goblet and nearly got your hand slapped by a servant with perfect aim. Dining at court is not about nourishment. It's theatre. You're not eating to live. You're eating to perform. Which brings us to the worst part, conversation. You sit at the far end of the table, surrounded by people who've never seen battle but have strong opinions on how it should be fought. You nod while a baron explains why mounted cavalry should be replaced with more archers. He's never ridden a horse in his life. You keep nodding. Another lord spends 10 minutes detailing his dream of a perfectly symmetrical castle shaped like a star. You mention structural flaws. He changes the subject. Every noble has a plan, a rival, a grudge, a cousin in exile. You're expected to remember all of it. You don't. So you nod more. You say indeed a lot. You quietly hope no one asks you anything too specific. At one point, you try to ask a question about supplies for the garrison. Silence. Then polite smiles. Then someone asks if you've tried the fig tart. You try the fig tart. You shut up. You attend ceremonies. You learn how to bow from the hip instead of the waist. You wear a doublet so tight it changes your posture permanently. You listen to poets. One recites a 12-minute piece comparing the court to a garden of heavenly flowers. He cries at the end. No one knows why. You clap anyway. You get used to the layers of discomfort. The formal robes, the rehearsed speeches, the way people say one thing and mean 3 others. You start to understand the rhythm, the illusion. No one says what they mean. No one means what they say. Everyone is watching everyone else. And you? You're just trying to survive. You see knights get promoted for flattery. You see others vanish after a careless word. One day you notice a new face at court, a lean, smiling man with sharp eyes and a suspiciously clean sword. He introduces himself as a court advisor. 2 weeks later, your roommate is accused of misconduct and reassigned to a swamp fortress. You do not ask questions. You're summoned for an audience, just you and the Lord. You panic. You rehearse your bow. You polish your boots again. You check your teeth with a dull knife. The hall is silent, cold. The Lord waves you forward. He says he's heard interesting things. You freeze. He smiles. He asks about morale. You say excellent with the enthusiasm of a man facing a guillotine. He thanks you. He says he may have use for someone like you. You nod. He dismisses you. You don't sleep that night. The next day you find yourself with new duties, more observing, more standing in rooms where important people argue over lines on maps. You become a background character in someone else's drama. You don't know if this is good. You know it's dangerous. The food stays good. The company does not. One knight accuses another of cheating at chess. The loser demands a duel. It's scheduled for next week. People take bets. The atmosphere is electric. Until someone poisons the wine at dinner and the duel becomes a funeral. No one is punished. The poisoner had friends. You stay quiet. You do your job. You bow deeper. You smile longer. You never speak first. Sometimes you miss the battlefield, not because it was better, but because at least there, the sword aimed at you came from the front. Here it might come from behind, and you'll still be expected to complement the cut. Chapter 11. Night watch, fear, fatigue, and every noise is death midnight. You're awake, not because you want to be, but because it's your turn on night watch. Again. For the 3rd time this week, you sit up slowly. Everything aches. Your blanket fell off hours ago, and your bones have started arguing with the stone floor. The room is freezing. Your breath fogs in the air. Your limbs creak like an old gate, and your back has officially filed a grievance against your mattress, also known as a pile of straw and disease. You don't bother washing your face. What's the point? You're about to spend 4 hours standing still, freezing to death in a suit of rusted chainmail that smells like onions and panic. Your squire hands you your gear without a word. It's too early for conversation and too late for anything but regret. You pull on your boots. Damp. Of course, your surcoat is stiff from dried sweat and weather. You strap on your belt, fasten your sword and grab your helmet. It's cold. Everything is cold. You step outside into a wind that feels like it's trying to slap your soul out of your body. The sky is black. The stars are frozen dots overhead. The moon casts everything in ghost light, which would be beautiful if you weren't trying to stay alive. Your post is on the outer wall. That means stairs. So many stairs, each one an insult to your knees. Your joints crack like kindling. By the time you reach the top, you're sweating through your shirt, but your fingers are still numb. You greet the other knight you're replacing. He looks half dead. He says nothing, just hands you the horn, mutters nothing yet, and disappears into the dark like a ghost late for bed. You take your position and then nothing. This is the reality of night watch. It's not glorious, it's not heroic, it's long, cold, silent fear. You stare into the darkness for hours, waiting for something, anything, to happen. You're supposed to be alert, ready, vigilant, but your body has other plans. Your eyes droop, your brain starts to drift. You blink. Once, twice, then a twig snaps. Instantly your heart explodes into action, every muscle tenses, your hand grips your sword. Your ears go full bat mode, you scan the woods beyond the wall. Nothing, just wind. Leaves rustling, you exhale slowly, another sound, this time behind you. You whirl. It's a rat, it stares at you like you're the problem, you nearly kill it. You lower your sword, your heart is hammering. Your armor creaks, you feel stupid, but also alert again for now. Time crawls, minutes feel like hours, your feet start to hurt, your shoulders ache, you shift your weight. Your boot slips slightly on the frost-covered stone. You steady yourself, you whisper to no one, "Wake up, stay sharp." Another hour passes. Still nothing. You try to think about something pleasant, you fail, your thoughts drift to food. Not what you're eating now, but food you used to dream about before life became leather soup and hard cheese. Roasted meat, fresh bread, honey, apples. You'd kill a man for an apple right now. Then your mind shifts to home. If you're lucky, you still have one. If you're unlucky, your family thinks you're dead. Or they've forgotten you, or you never really had a home to begin with. You shake it off. Another sound, this one is real. A branch cracking, closer. You grip the horn in one hand, ready to blow it if you have to. More rustling, movement in the dark. You raise your sword, step toward the edge of the wall, squint into the shadows. It's a deer. Just a deer. You don't relax because deer don't matter. But what might be behind them does. Your legs hurt now, deep in the bone, the kind of ache that doesn't go away with sleep. It's the kind of pain that comes from holding your body tense for hours like a bowstring pulled too tight. You try to stretch, your back pops loudly, a bird flies off in the distance. You almost die of fright. You start to feel irrational. Everything feels like a threat. Every shape is a person, every breeze is an arrow, every flicker of movement is your last moment. You breathe, you count to 10, you tell yourself you're trained for this, you tell yourself nothing will happen. But you don't believe it because you've seen what happens when the watch fails, you've heard the stories, knights with their throats cut in their sleep, castles overrun before dawn, tunnels dug under walls while the guards snored. You've seen what it looks like to wake up to screaming. You stay awake, you stay cold, you grip the sword tighter. Then comes the worst part, the last hour. Not because it's more dangerous, because it feels the longest. You're drained, numb. Every sound blends together. Your thoughts get slower. You start to hallucinate shapes in the trees. You shake your head, stamp your feet, bite your tongue. You mutter prayers, not because you believe, but because you need something to say. Finally, you hear footsteps. Your relief. He looks half frozen. He nods at you. You nod back. He doesn't say a word. You hand him the horn. You shuffle down the stairs, limbs barely responding. You get back to your bunk. You drop your sword. You fall into your straw. You don't take off your armor. You don't close your eyes. You pass out. Chapter 12. Knighthood. You made it. Sort of. You wake up on the floor. You don't remember falling asleep. Your armor is still half on. Your leg is twitching involuntarily. And your mouth tastes like you chewed on a candle and forgot to swallow. You've stopped asking why. This is just how mornings start now, but today's different. Today you're being knighted. Yes, that knighting. The whole reason you've endured split toenails, boiled leather stew, night watches from hell, joust to the face, and etiquette lessons where the most violent thing in the room was Lady Elsbeth's voice. You don't feel excited. You feel exhausted. Your hip is clicking like it's made of wood. Your armpits still burn from armor rash, and your hands shake from the cold. You're not a warrior. You're a walking side effect. Still you rise. You get dressed slowly, carefully. A clean tunic, well, cleanish. Boots that mostly match, a belt that doesn't cut off circulation. You attempt to fix your hair. It cooperates less than usual, which is saying something, because usual is woke up under a cart. Your squire, nervous, over-earnest, and somehow more awake than any human should be at this hour, follows you with a sword in his arms. Your sword, the one you've trained with. Swung, dropped, dented, polished, dropped again, nearly stabbed yourself with, and finally, maybe, learned to trust. You walk to the great hall. Everyone is already there. Knights, squires, nobles, the priest. The lord of the castle stands near the front, wearing something velvet and impractical, holding a ceremonial blade that looks more decorative than deadly. The air smells like incense, dust and importance. You kneel. Your knees crack like old floorboards. You lower your head. The priest mutters a prayer. You understand half of it, maybe less. Something about virtue, loyalty, honor, and a bunch of Latin words that sound vaguely threatening. You nod anyway. The Lord steps forward. He says your name. You almost don't recognize it. It's been so long since anyone said it without yelling. He talks about your service, your bravery, your discipline. You try not to laugh. He lifts the ceremonial sword. It comes down on your shoulder once, twice. A third time it's done. You are now officially a knight. You rise. There's clapping, smiles, a few firm pats on the back. You're handed a cloak, a ring, a goblet of wine that doesn't taste like vinegar. For one brief moment, you are the moment. It feels weird, not joyful, not triumphant, just quiet. Like the end of a long, miserable play where everyone forgot their lines and you're just relieved no one died in the final act. Later there's a feast. Better food, real meat, fresh bread, spiced wine. You eat until you feel something close to full. You sit at a better table. People make eye contact. Someone calls you sir. You try not to snort. A bard sings a song about your courage under fire. He wasn't there. He didn't see you sobbing in the stable after night watch, clutching your sword like a security blanket. He didn't see the time you fell off your horse and got dragged 10 feet through goat droppings. He didn't hear your stomach growling during the siege while you hallucinated that the cook's ladle was a roast chicken. But the song's nice. You nod. You raise your goblet. You pretend this was all part of the plan. Then come the responsibilities. Because being a knight isn't the end. It's just a more decorated kind of servitude. You get more respect, slightly. You get more food occasionally. You also get more duties, more orders, more politics, more speeches from noblemen who've never seen mud but think they understand war. You're assigned to a new garrison, the one near the border, cold, isolated, full of problems that aren't yours, but now they are. You pack your things. Your squire does most of it. You sharpen your blade one last time in the castle yard, knowing full well it'll be dull again by week's end. You say goodbye to your bunkmates. Some smile, some just nod. One hands you a crust of bread and says, "Don't die." You appreciate that. You ride out the next morning, armor strapped on, sword at your hip, squire trailing behind on a mule that smells like something gave up. The road is long, quiet. Your thoughts wander. You think about all the things knighthood was supposed to be. Glory, honor, purpose. Instead, it's just more of the same. Cold nights, hard beds, long rides, pain that won't go away. But here's the truth. You survived. That's more than most. You didn't give up. You didn't die. You didn't let the armor eat you alive. You kept going. You keep going, because that's what knights do. Not because it's noble, not because it's heroic, but because the world doesn't stop, and neither can you. So you ride into another storm, into another mess, into another day, still breathing, still standing, still a knight, kind of, sort of, maybe. So there you have it, one full day in the chainmail-clad, mud-splattered, rat-infested life of a medieval knight. You were bruised, battered, burned, bored, bitten, broken, and somehow still breathing. You faced rotten food, clanging armor, flaming pigs, infected wounds, church bells at ungodly hours, etiquette lessons that felt like war crimes, and night shifts that turned your soul into beef jerky. And after all that, your reward was a title, a new sword, and surprise, more suffering, but with a slightly fancier cape. Being a knight wasn't about glory, it wasn't about honor, it was about endurance. Pure, stubborn, uncomfortable endurance, because medieval life didn't care if you were brave. It cared if you could stay on your horse, swing a sword without collapsing, and go to bed covered in mud and regret, and still show up the next morning with your boots on straight. So if you ever romanticized knighthood, dreamed of castles, noble quests, or chivalrous duels under a moonlit sky, congratulations, you've now been thoroughly cured. And if, after all this, you still think you could handle it, you're either lying or already halfway there. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us which part of the medieval experience would have broken you first. Our bet's on the toilet. Until next time, sleep tight and be glad you weren't born in 1325.